Hey guys, it's Nick from 3-2 Pitch, and welcome to Mets Week 2019. And we're getting started off this week with a bang. We're doing this today, 10 Mets trades that I can see happening this offseason. And so just keep in mind, these trades probably won't happen exactly player for player. But, these are some trades that fill needs that the Mets have this coming off season and they need to address. Like I said, by any means, I do not see any of these trades happening, but there is a chance, always a slight chance that this could happen, and these trades are pretty realistic. But I'm sure other GMs will be asking for more than what I've offered. So starting off with two honorable mentions. So I'm doing trades incoming players for the Mets. These two players, I am, thinking that they could be held on to and traded more at the trade deadline. These two players are Jed Lowery and Wilson Ramos. So Lowry's contract ends at the end of this season. He's set to make $9 million. And Wilson Ramos is set to make $9.25 million and has a club option with a $1.5 million buyout for $10 million. So, like I said, I expect both these players could be traded. And Ramos this offseason, definitely he could provide some value if the Mets do indeed go after Yasmani Grandal like they did last offseason. There's no particular order in what these players are listed in. I just was going through all the teams, and then these are just 10 players, in an order that I kind of just thought of what to do. So like I said, no particular order. So let's get started with number one. I have the Boston Red Sox trading Mookie Betts to the New York Mets in exchange for Noah Syndergaard. So before y'all go start commenting in the comment section below, I know Van Wagenen has stated that Noah Syndergaard won't be going anywhere and is part of the plans for this 2020 Mets team. However, if you're a GM and you get this chance, Noah Syndergaard from Mookie Betts straight up, that's one you have to highly consider. Mookie Betts in 2019 hit .295 with 29 home runs, 80 RBIs, 16 stolen bases, and hit 135. Mookie Betts provides stellar defense in center field, and that's one of the positions that the Mets need to address this offseason. I mean, they basically have a couple blades of grass out there, unless you stick Nimmo out there. But at the moment, they have no one. They're looking for a center fielder, preferably with a right-handed bat, and their first priority is defense, with Betts providing a ton of offense. That is a huge plus for the Mets. Syndergaard, on the other hand, is coming off of a down year, but still has a capability. He had a ERA under 3 before this last year, where he logged a 4.28 ERA, raising his career ERA to 3.31. He pitched 197 and 2/3 innings and struck out 202 batters and had a 1.234 whip. Like I said, I don't expect Noah Syndergaard to go anywhere. I expect Van Wagenen to stick by what he said, keeping Syndergaard around for this next year. However, if you can lock up Betts after trading for him, I mean, then you might as well do it, because you have Betts for a long term, and that is filling a position you need for a while. The Mets don't have very much money committed after this year. Cespedes comes off the books, Lowery comes off the books. They have a good bit of money freed up after this season. And for the Red Sox, it's such a good deal. You have 1 year of Betts left. You're not going to be able to re-sign him next offseason. He says he wants to test the free agent market. And you're getting tons of control in Syndergaard. So great trade for both sides if the Mets can lock up Syndergaard. The next trade I can see happening comes from the Pittsburgh Pirates. The reason I see this happening is I do expect the Pirates to go full-blown rebuild mode this offseason. They're getting a new manager, new GM, new president of baseball operations, practically a whole entire new coaching staff. And I expect them to be bottom of the division again this year, and like I said, just rebuild it. So doing so is getting any value you can for certain players. And I have two of them going to the New York Mets, Chris Archer and Starling Marte, in exchange for Chris Mazza, Tomas Nido, and Luis Carpi. Archer's set to make $9 million in 2020 and has a $11 million club option with a $250,000 buyout. Starling Marte, along with Archer, is a free agent after the season unless the Mets pick up a $12.5 million contract with a $2 million buyout for this next season. And Marte's set to make $11.5 million this offseason, or this season. The Pirates definitely would have to eat some of the money on both these players. I'd expect maybe, roughly $7 million to make this trade work. And the Mets are giving up a good chunk of players in exchange. Chris Archer this last season had by far definitely his worst season of his career. Maybe because he pitched for Pittsburgh, a not so great team. He's had some pretty darn good seasons from 2013 to 2015-16, where in 2016 he started his ERA above 4 and started going downhill. But I think a change of scenery is definitely needed. Archer posted a 5.19 ERA in 119 innings pitched. He struck out 143 and gave up 25 long balls. Archer, like I said, I think he needs a change of scenery, and I think he would pair really well with Marcus Stroman in the back end of this Mets rotation. And he has the experience, which is something that not many of the Mets starters have. He is 31 right now and has been played since 2012. So, like I said, Archer I think would be a great piece to include in this rebuild to get these extra players for from the Pirates. Marte, on the other hand, has been on the incline. He hit .295 this last season with 23 long balls, stole 25 bags, and drove in 82 RBIs. So Marte is a plus defender in center field. He has a plus bat. He has some speed. He's a right-handed stick, which is everything the Mets are looking for. And within this trade, the Mets also get a position, fill a spot in the rotation, and their big gapping hole in center field for what they give up. Chris Mazza this last season is not any prospect he once was, but he does show signs of promise. And in this rotation that the Mets do have, he's nowhere close to being a starter like once was. He would be a bullpen piece for them, but I don't see a spot for him, and that's why I think Pittsburgh would be a great place for him. In 16 and a third innings, he struck out 11, posted a 5.51 ERA, small sample size, a bunch of S's next to his name in the major leagues. So I definitely think Mazza has some great stuff and would be a great piece for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Going along with Mazza, we have Tomas Nido. Nido is the 25-year-old catcher for the New York Mets. He unfortunately is my least favorite player on the Mets because I feel like he's always striking out or popping up. He did have that one walk-off home run this season. That was a big joy. But Nido is definitely a defensive-minded catcher and would work really well in the Pirates organization. He hit 4 home runs, drove in 14, hit 191 at the plate. But like I said, hitting is not his strength. It's definitely his defense. I think he would provide so much value to another team like the Pirates, where it would be worth it to trade him in a deal for Marte and Archer. Going over to the Pirates, I also have Luis Carpio, the Mets' number 29th ranked prospect. He has a 40 hit, 40 power, 50 run, 50 arm, 55 field. He's overall 40. He is more of a contact hitter. He hit .330 in 31 games with St. Louis A-ball, and in Double-A, he hit .263 in 243 at-bats. He did only hit 4 home runs the entire 2019 season, but with 64 strikeouts and 337 at-bats, so he does show some promise. He's expected to come up this next year, and with the Mets not having much of a slot, I think Carpio would be a great fit with the Pirates in a place where he can really blossom into a player. And if the Mets need to include one other piece, I wouldn't be surprised if they include prospect Sam Haggerty. Haggerty's 25, and he's a second baseman, and he didn't really get much experience in the majors. He was drafted 2015 by the Cleveland Indians in the 24th round, but definitely shows a decent promise at the plate. 2019 in the minors, Haggerty hit .271 with 3 long balls, and he had a .376 OPS. So another player where he would fit pretty well with the Pirates in a really open team, in which case they're trying to trade everybody, tear it down, get prospects. So definitely a move where Haggerty's blocked in the Met system, and I do expect to see him move some way instead of just being sat on the bench for being a 25-year-old blocked into the majors. Third trade I see the Mets making this season is acquiring Ken Giles and prospect Alejandro Kirk from the Toronto Blue Jays in exchange for first baseman Dominick Smith. Ken Giles is set to make $8.4 million this next year and is a free agent in 2021. And Alejandro Kirk is a 21-year-old catching prospect, number 12 for the Blue Jays. In 2019, he hit .290 in the Blue Jays minors with 7 home runs and a .403 OPS. Definitely someone the Blue Jays would not want to trade, but get a player like Dominick Smith, it's hard to pass up this opportunity, along with dumping a player that's making a bunch of money and you're losing at the end of this season. It's said that they were trying to trade him at the deadline, but there was just a lack of interest. And Ken Giles is definitely the player that would work really well paired up with Edwin Diaz and Seth Lugo at the back end of the rotation for the Mets. Last season, he had a 1.87 ERA, 23 saves in 53 innings. He struck out 83 and had a 1.00 WHIP. So he's definitely a closer, but if you move Diaz to setup role, if he's shaky, then I definitely do see Giles being traded. The Mets in this trade do give up Dominick Smith, who was injured through the back end of the season. He did hit a walk-off home run in the last game of the season. That was a crazy one. This last season he had 282 with 11 home runs and drove in 25 runs, 355 on base percentage. And Dominick Smith is a left-handed bat. First base is something that the Blue Jays really need after Smoke and Rowdy Tellez just like more DH form now. So definitely a position, and he also can play left field. So it's another young player that the Blue Jays can build around for the coming seasons, which is great for them with Vladdy Jr. and Bo Bichette manning the left side of the infield. So I definitely do see this trade as one of the higher end trades that could happen. Number 4 on this list, we're going a little out of reasonability, and the Cubs are trading Kris Bryant to the New York Mets in exchange for J.D. Davis, Jed Lowry, Jacob Rhame, and Freddie Valdez. It's definitely, like I said, one of the more unreasonable trades I can see happening, but the Cubs need to free up space, and trading Kris Bryant would be a definite option where he's set to make $18.5 million. He's arbitration eligible in 2021 and is an unrestricted free agent in 22. Kris Bryant this last season hit .282 with 31 homers, 77 RBIs with a .382 on base percentage and a .903 OPS. Bryant's hole in Chicago will be quickly filled up with Mets platoon player J.D. Davis, who played corner outfielders positions and third base and can play first base. Davis this last year hit .307, 22 home runs, drove in 57 runs, had a .369 on-base percentage and a .395 OPS. Davis is also much younger, has more control, and I think would be a great move for the Chicago Cubs, in which case are trying to contend but need to free up space to address other needs. Also getting a haul back with him. With J.D. Davis comes Jed Lowry, who could, like I said, platoon middle infield spots, which they could need if Ben Zobrist walks in free agency, and you don't know what production you get out of Addison Russell. You also get Jacob Rhame, who's 26-year-old pitcher. He was a 6th-round pick with the Los Angeles Dodgers in 2013. He had put a bunch of S's next to his name, small sample size. He had a .426 ERA in 6 1/3 innings pitched. He struck out 5. So Rhame just needs an opportunity to pitch more, and I think the Cubs needing bullpen arms, it would work great to start the rotation and throw out there, every couple of days, see what he can do. Also have prospect Freddie Valdez going. He's the Mets ranked number 18 prospect. He's an outfielder, estimated 2023. He's 45 hit, 55 power, 50 arm, 50 run, 50 field, overall 45. He was an international free agent in the 2018-19 signing period. He was 16 years old, so now he's 17 years old. And this last season, he hit .274 with 6 home runs in the Mets' low farm systems. So definitely a ways away by all means, but for a Cubs team that could need a power bat. He is promising 35 out of 60 power. Could show some signs of power in the outfield for them in the near future. Moving out west to the San Francisco Giants, I could see the Giants trading Evan Longoria and Kevin Pillar with cash considerations to the New York Mets in exchange for J.D. Davis and Steven Villanes. Like I said, Davis would fill a hole that the Giants need in corner outfielders, third base, and corner infield spots. Would be a great bat in San Francisco, and the Giants here are dumping a bunch of salary in Longoria and Pillar. Longoria is set to make a boatload of money in 2020, 2021, 2022. He's set to make $15 million in 2020, $18.5 in 2021, and $19.5 in 2022. He does have a club option of $13 million with a $5 million buyout for 2023, which I do not expect to pick up. Tampa Bay does, however, retain a $2 million trade assignment bonus, cover $11 million in deferred salary and $3 million in cash for the 2022 season. Evan Longoria this last season didn't have as productive of a season as he has in the past. He hit .254 with 20 home runs, drove in 69 RBIs, 325 on base percentage with a 762 OPS. Lower numbers than normal for a player like Longoria, but could just need a change of scenery out in San Francisco. Kevin Pillar is set to make $9.7 million in 2020 and is an unrestricted free agent after the season. And I do see the Giants going into rebuild mode and paying a bunch of this money, probably about half of Longoria's remaining contract and maybe a quarter of Pillar's remaining money in order to make this trade work money-wise for the New York Mets. And this trade works in multiple ways. The Mets get a third baseman of need. In a way, I know they've said they want to put J.D. Davis and McNeil out there and Lowery, but I definitely think that you could move other pieces and improve other spots, along with getting these veteran players that could be very useful for the Giants. Kevin Pillar this last year had one 10th place MVP vote. He hit .259 with 21 home runs, drove in 88 runs, had a 719 OPS. So he had basically a career year. He's never done this good, and honestly was a great player for the Giants in center field. He has pretty darn good defense, right-handed bat. So definitely a player that the Mets need in center field. And the fact that you're only giving up Villanes and Davis is pretty darn good. We've already talked about J.D. Davis's stats, so let's talk a little bit about Villanes. Is a 45 fastball, 45 slider, 55 changeup, 50 control, and overall 50. He's expected this next season, and with the Mets such backlogged, I do expect him to get traded this offseason. He had a 1.2 ERA in 45 innings in AA this year, with 6.75 in AAA in 16 innings. So he does have the stuff to be pretty nasty on AA ball. So just the chance to prove it in San Francisco major ball is something they would have to see. But definite promise for the Giants, who are the contracts of these players and would get a great player with control in J.D. Davis and Villanes. Okay, so next trade we have the Mets are going to trade with Tampa Bay Rays. So the Rays send over Kevin Kiermaier and Yonny Chirinos in exchange for Dominick Smith, Walter Lockett, and Tomas Nido. Kiermaier is set to make $10 million in 2020, $11.5 in 2021, $12 million in 2022, and has a $13 million with a 2.5 buyout for 2023. Kiermaier had a down year and at the plate this last season with only 14 home runs and 228 average. However, he does provide stellar defense in center, and one downfall for the Mets is it's not a right-handed stick, in which case you were looking for. You have control over Yonny Chirinos through 2024, and last season he had a 3.85 ERA. He started 18 games in 133 and a third innings pitch. He struck out 114 and had a 1.05 WHIP. It's definitely one of those players that could fit in the Mets rotation or bullpen, however they please to use him. Walter Lockett is another player, just part of the Mets surplus of pitchers. He had an 8.32 ERA and 22 and a 2/3 innings pitch, had 16 strikeouts and 1.72 WHIP. So like I said, just the Mets have so many pitchers. They not all of them can pitch to their advantages. Walter Lockett did start 4 games. So definitely do see him as an opener for the Rays, as he has started games with the Mets. And keeping it realistic one more time, the 7th trade I have on this list is Alex Colome and Kelvin Herrera getting traded to the New York Mets in exchange for Jed Lowery and Drew Smith. Kelvin Herrera is set to make $8.5 million and in 2020 and has a $10 million club option with a $1 million buyout in 2021. Alex Colome is estimated to earn $10.3 million in 2020 and is an unrestricted free agent after that. This last season had a disastrous season. He didn't really want to be with the White Sox. He has 6.14 ERA and 51 and a third innings pitch with 53 strikeouts and a 1.61 WHIP. Colome, on the other hand, had a much better year. He had a 2.8 ERA in 61 innings, 55 strikeouts, and saved 30 games for the White Sox. So these two players address a big need in the bullpen for the Mets. And with only giving up Jed Lowery, which would be a more veteran presence for the White Sox and would help command that young infield they have. The 26-year-old had a 3.54 ERA this last in 2018 with the Mets. In 2018, in 28 innings, had 18 strikeouts and a 1.43 WHIP. So you didn't get a chance to pitch this last year, but Drew Smith is definitely a player that could impact and possibly even save games for the White Sox. He has that quality of a reliever that could be useful for the White Sox, and this also fills the needs of the Mets bullpen. For a more unrealistic option, but I do see a possibility being traded, is Whit Merrifield from the Kansas City Royals to the New York Mets. Whit Merrifield this last year hit .302 with 16 home runs, stole 20 bags, and had .811 OPS. Whit Merrifield can play center. He has great speed, great defense, and would fill up that center field hole that the Mets have. Before we start talking about who the Mets give up, Merrifield is a greatly affordable player. $5 million in 2020, 6.75 in 2021, 2.75 in 2022, and a club option for 2023 worth $6.5 million. In this trade, I have the Mets giving up a boatload. I see them giving up Brandon Nimmo, Daniel Zamora, and Junior Santos. Nimmo spent most of the season on the IL with a neck injury, and when returning from the neck injury was lights out, was a great player for the Mets. Finished off in center field for them. The season through injury hit .221 with 8 home runs and a .375 on-base percentage. Draws lots of walks and will be a great piece for the Royals building around. He's only 26 years old and has lots of control over him. Daniel Zamora would also fit in their bullpen. He's a 26-year-old. He was pretty shaky this year, 5.19 ERA and set in 8 2/3 innings. But put a bunch of S's next to his name, small sample size. He does have the stuff, a good slider to be pretty nasty out of the pen. Finally, the Mets give up Junior Santos, their number 13 ranked prospect. He is a right-hand pitcher, estimated 2022. Has a 60 fastball, 50 slider, 45 changeup, 60 control, overall 45. In the minors this year, he posted a 5.09 ERA and 40 2/3 innings pitch and struck out 36. So definitely a ways away. More experience is needed for Santos. But I think for the Royals, if you get a package this big for a player like Merrifield, you have to accept. Down to the final two. Who's it going to be? Well, the 9th trade I have that I can see the Mets making is acquiring George Springer from the Houston Astros. He's estimated to make $21.4 million, and Van Wagenen really likes the Astros team, and with the Astros, all this cheating nonsense going on, Springer may want the heck out of there and would greatly help and fill needs in center field for the Mets. He is an unrestricted free agent in 2021, however. Spring of this last year, hit 295 with 39 home runs, drove in 96 runs, had a 974 OPS. Averaged above average defense, pretty good speed out in center field. A right-handed stick, definitely everything the Mets are looking for in center field. I think he'd be a great fit if the Astros, a bunch of players want to get off this team for cheating. But that not necessarily cheating. I do see the Astros trading him if a big enough offer comes their way. This offer I see them making is kind of more on the low end, but Springer most likely getting sent out, being unrestricted free agent. After this, I have the Mets trading Dominick Smith, Bachelor, and Shrevin Newton. Dominick Smith we've already talked about. Tyler Bachelor is another one of those long list of 4A pitchers the Mets have in a way. 26 years old, pretty young. He posts a 6.95 ERA in 22 innings, 20 strikeouts, and 1.73 WHIP. So more innings than some of the other pitchers the Mets had this last season, but like I said, just needs more another opportunity in another ballpark to go out there and pitch more often than the Mets, log behind all these great starters they have, and Houston would definitely be a place that would welcome him. Also going to Houston is the Mets' ranked eighth ranked prospect in their system with a 2020 ETA. Has a 45 hit, 55 power, 45 run, 60 arm, 50 field, and a 50 overall. This year in the minors, he hit 209 with 9 home runs and a 613 OPS. He is only 20, so he needs time to develop as a player. And finally on our list, we have the Mets trading for shortstop Francisco Lindor from the Cleveland Indians in exchange for Ahmed Rosario, Dominick Smith, and Adrian Hernandez. Lindor is estimated to make $16.7 million in 2020 and is arbitration eligible 2021, free agent in 2022. This year, Lindor hit 284 with 32 home runs, stole 22 bags, and had an 854 OPS. Lindor, a shortstop, would be a great bat in the Mets lineup, and you basically replace him with Rosario, and Rosario is a great player up in the making, and would be a great player for the Indians. This last season, Rosario hit 287 with 15 home runs, 72 RBI, stole 19 bases. Rosario, the speed, his power is finally coming alive. He's showing that he can hit for a good contract. He's only 23 years old, so still a lot before him, before he hits free agency, and would be a great player for the Indians as a replacement for Lynn. The fact that you also get Dominick Smith in this deal is great for the Indians. You get a first baseman behind Carlos Santana, and he could even play left field for them, and outfield is a position of need definitely for the Cleveland team. And you also get in the deal the Mets' 20th ranked prospect, estimated 2022, with a 45 hit, 50 power, 55 run, 55 arm, 50 field, overall 45, Adrian Hernandez. This season in the minors, he hit 286 in 14 at-bats. Again, SSSSSSS. They signed him. He was ranked 19 on top 30 international players. He's only 18 years old, so just needs tons of time to develop, and looks like he can be a pretty decent bat for the Indians in this outfield come 2022, 2023, 2024. The Mets, I do see trading definitely like J.D. Davis or Dom Smith or one of their many lists of pitchers, even jumping into that small pool of prospects to go win now. If you win now, you let Wheeler walk almost definitely. That's another topic for another video. You're just getting draft picks and rebuilding up that farm while competing. And a lot of these trades, these major league ready players that you have, if you trade them away for these players, you're not diving deep into that, and you have such a surplus of players. You could even see the Mets trading another one of their outfielders possibly if they don't trade Nimmo when Cespedes comes back. Yes, they could package up a bunch of those guys and trade for a few prospects. I do see that happening to build that system, but I think it's more reasonable that the Mets win now and build up a big package of all of them in exchange for a big guy that would fill their needs as their fifth starter or in center field, or like possibly an infielder that they desperately need. Yeah, this has been a pretty long video. I've really enjoyed thinking about these trades and listing them out. I know this is like my first time I really done this, so I am kind of a rookie at this, so the setup is definitely one to improve upon, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video of me just talking about my favorite team, the New York Mets, and sharing what I think could happen, and I love thinking about and fantasizing all these trades that could happen.